Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's Last Post ceremony. My name is Emily Hiles, and joining us today from the Royal Australian Air Force is Wing Commander Michael Garside. In 1942, the bombing war over Germany intensified as Royal Air Force Bomber Command grew in size and power. The United States Army Air Force was set to join the campaign in earnest that summer. As a demonstration of the RAF's power, Air Marshal Sir Arthur Harris determined to launch what would become known as the 1,000 Bomber Raids. He called on all operational bomber squadrons with training units and their less experienced crews making up the numbers. Dubbed Operation Millennium, the first 1,000 bomber raid took place on the night of 30th of May 1942. Targeting the German city of Cologne, the RAF used the bomber stream tactic for the first time, overwhelming enemy radar and defences by flying in a narrow, dense formation. 1,455 tonnes of bombs were dropped, destroying more than 3,000 buildings and damaging many more. The second 1,000 bomber raid, which took place on the night of the 1st of June, was less effective as the target was obscured. The third raid, targeting Bremen on the night of the 25th of June, successfully targeted enemy aircraft factories and shipyards. While 122 bombers were lost during these three raids, the new tactics worked well and much damage was inflicted on German cities. It would be a sign of more to come. The raids also provided a boost in morale for Bomber Command and on the home front, both in Britain and here in Australia. This evening, we are honoured to acknowledge Mr. Arjan Devrim, Istanbul Deputy Chief Public Prosecutor, Turkey, Mr. Adem Koç, Department Deputy Head, Counter-Narcotic Crimes Department, Turkish National Police, and their accompanying delegation. We also warmly welcome Wing Commander Bob Howe, retired, representing the Air Force Association. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that love and support them. We acknowledge the members of RSL and Services Clubs Association, RSL Victoria, and RSL Queensland, who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the pool of reflection by visitors to the memorial. If you're able, please stand and join in singing the national anthem. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we will read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 102,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations for more than a century. But first, we present a lament, flowers of the forest. Wreaths and floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the pool of reflection.
Today we remember and pay tribute to Sergeant William Desmond Cheese. William Cheese was born on the 13th of July 1921 in the town of Curry on Tasmania's King Island. Affectionately known by his middle name Desmond, he was the eldest of 3 children born to Arthur Cheese, a grazier, and his wife Elsie. Desmond received his early education in Narracoopa and from the age of 12 attended Hobart State High School as a boarder. He was a keen sportsman and enjoyed swimming, fishing, rowing and running. On completion of his schooling, Desmond returned to King Island and helped on the family farm. He also joined the local rifle club and served 6 months in the King Island Cable Guards. He later moved to Melbourne and studied at an insurance institute before gaining employment as a clerk for the Employers' Liability Association. When the Second World War broke out in 1939, Desmond returned to King Island to help on his father's property. Desmond Cheese enlisted in the Royal Australian Air Force on the 15th of August 1940. He undertook his initial training as well as a wireless operator air gunners course in Victoria before travelling to Queensland, where he undertook further bombing and gunnery training. On the 29th of May 1941, he embarked for active service from Brisbane alongside 16 other new RAAF recruits. Cheese arrived in Liverpool, England on the 20th of July. He spent the months which followed at a personnel reception centre in Bournemouth before joining No. 20 Operational Training Unit, where he learned to operate the Vickers Wellington bomber. In December, Cheese joined the ranks of the newly formed 460 Squadron in Molesworth, England. As part of No. 8 Group of RAF Bomber Command, the squadron's main role was to attack enemy targets over Europe. As a wireless operator air gunner, Cheese had a dual role, operating the wireless radio and manning a machine gun if the aircraft was attacked. Some of his first raids took place over Germany and on coastal cities in occupied France, where the bombers targeted shipping and harbour infrastructure. On the 1st of June 1942, Cheese took part in a 1,000-bomber raid on the German city of Essen. The crews experienced great difficulty in finding their targets owing to haze and low cloud. Following this scattered attack, Cheese's aircraft was returning to base when they were hit by enemy fire while flying low over the ocean. Their aircraft almost immediately struck the water, broke up and began to sink. Cheese and 3 of his comrades fought their way to the surface but were unable to save the 5th member of the crew, who drowned amongst the wreckage. About 15 minutes later, the men were picked up by an enemy vessel and made prisoners of war. The worst hit, Cheese suffered a broken ankle and wounds to his legs and head. One of his comrades died as he was being pulled aboard the ship. Cheese and the 2 remaining members of the crew were taken to a German naval hospital at Bergen-op-Zoom in Holland, where they were treated for their wounds. Initially listed as missing, presumed dead, Cheese's family later received word that he had been captured following the raid on Essen. He remained in hospital for several weeks, during which time he wrote often to his family. His leg had to be amputated, and following this he said, "They are pretty concerned about me because I am skinny as a rake and my leg still discharges a lot of matter from the wound of the operation they made on it. I went through agony up until 3 days ago when it started to get a bit better, but even now I get shooting pains if I move. I am in a frightfully weakened position, and so after the war I shall be given a long period of convalescence before which I shall get leave, so the boys reckon." Just 5 days later, on the 20th of July 1942, exactly 1 year to the day after arriving in Europe, Sergeant Cheese succumbed to his wounds and died in hospital. The German nurses later noted to the Red Cross, "The Englishman Cheese bore his severe injuries with great patience and was always easily pleased. His fellow prisoners, who were also injured, visited him to the end and wrote letters for him to his family. His condition gradually got worse and he died peacefully on the 20th of July 1942 without expressing any wishes or saying goodbye to his friends." Cheese was buried in the local cemetery at Bergen-op-Zoom, Holland. Following his death, his family wrote to the Air Board and said, "There is one satisfaction, although a small one, and that is that we know he did his best and gave all for us who are left behind." Sergeant William Desmond Cheese was just 21 years old. His name is listed on the Roll of Honour on my left among almost 40,000 Australians who died while serving in the Second World War. This is but one of the many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Sergeant William Desmond Cheese, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the Ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
Lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Pozières or in the low scrub at Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes the last post ceremony. On behalf of our director and staff, we thank you for visiting the War Memorial today and for your continued support of the Australian War Memorials Development Project. We wish you all a very pleasant evening.